Hi guys, today me and Lisa are at Suliko Wine Bar. I think we have today a really nice and interesting topic that we would like to share. I was super pumped yesterday when we found about this topic concerning grape variety Kisi. Yeah, stage is yours, Lisa.
Thanks, Gil. And I also need to thank, first and foremost, Dato Chichua of Gigaora, because it's only by virtue of tasting with him and being his guest at Gigaora. It's been, I'm not even sure how many years that I've been tasting with him and going through the microvinifications that he does at Gigaora, which is a research institution just outside of Tbilisi. We were there yesterday, Gio and I, and we were stunned when Dato explained to us, because I was actually, I'll just back up a second, when I chose the grape varieties that I wanted to taste, I didn't want to taste, Cazzaccelli, Zwane, Saperavi. I know these varieties very well, and I understand how they operate, how they perform in different terroirs and with different winemaking practices. And I was really surprised when he chose two different Kisis. Like, we went through the ones, and all of a sudden he started to pour it in one flight, and there were two different Kisis. I should just note, for those of you who don't know, I wrote a book called The Wines of Georgia. It actually came out 3 years ago exactly. I got a little pop-up today on my Facebook page. And then most recently, it was exciting, fun to see. And then I have been working for the past couple of years on an annual Georgian wine guide, where the bigger book is an exploration of more of a reference book of the history of Georgia, Georgian winemaking varieties, and a review of lots of different terroirs and certain wine producers, whereas the annual wine guide is really a tasting. It's a short course, a condensed version of some of the larger book, but then the bulk of the book really is a review of the vintages of recent years and a review of blind tastings that I've done in the prior June, along with Gio and a couple of other wine tasters. We tasted everything blind, discussed them, and came up with a rating score, and that actually has just been released this week. In the meantime, look, Kisi, I didn't expect to taste Kisi. Everybody loves Kisi. Kisi because it's a four-letter word that's very easy to pronounce, and Kisi Huggy, people get very excited about it. It's one of the most accessible grape varieties in terms of pronunciation, but also because Kisi appears to, for someone who's first learning about Georgian wine, obviously easier to say than Cazzaccelli, and somehow it seems like a better grape variety. There's less of it, and I think Cazzaccelli is a great grape variety that doesn't get enough respect, but we're not going to talk, especially when it's made in February, but we're not going to talk about Cazzaccelli, we're going to talk about Kisi. So we were stunned sitting there when Dato says to us, well, you have to taste the real Kisi. And I said, what are you talking about? And all of a sudden, he pulls out the most recent book. It's only available in Georgian. It's the most recent ampelography of Georgian grape varieties that was done with scientific expertise at Gigaora. And in fact, there are pictures of two different grape varieties. One is Kisi, one is labeled Kisi, and the other is labeled Magrani. Different DNA, yes. Completely different. And if you look in the book, if you look at the shape of the cluster and the size of the berries, the formation of the leaves, completely, the only thing that's the same is that it's a white grape variety. Grapes also have different skin thickness.
Yes.
Okay, apart from having different shapes.
Yeah.
So we then tasted the two different Kisis, and there was no question that the, real Kisi, as Dato tried to explain it, it has in some ways the breadth and complexity, one could say, of Cazzaccelli. It has the nerve, central palate focus and concentration of Zwane, and then a softness, a fruitiness, and an elegance, a plumpness that one gets from Hikri. It's not any of those, and it's not what we know as this Magranuli, which ultimately was made popular by a particular grower, and because it was so well regarded as Kisi, everyone raced to plant it, okay? And that became what the popular grape variety that we regard, or that we've identified as Kisi, even when it's not Kisi.
We are now judging all that from the perspective of the people who are professionally understanding the grape varieties of Georgia. Those people are on the same page, and we are using the information and the knowledge that they were so generous to share with us.
People are super excited from where I come from. I mean, actually, even certainly in Georgia, but outside of Georgia, people are super excited about these grape varieties and trying to learn what they're about. And people are always asking me, you know, how do you define this grape variety? What's specific about it? How is it different from another one? We need more specificity. We need more transparency. And it's really wonderful when you can finally identify one from another. I mean, look, there were lots of instances, I'll just say in California, where grape varieties were brought, the so-called suitcase clones, and people thought they were planting Syrah or something else. And then the grape, as it grew and developed, they found out that they got snookered by some grower or maybe the grower didn't even know in France.
Yeah.
And they ended up with Grenache or Mourvedre or some other grape variety from the Rhone Valley. That's like one of the examples. It's very common. And so, but the key is to identify what's what, because in the end, when you have, I'm not saying that Magranuli is a lesser variety, it's just different, okay?
Yeah.
And what is really cool is when you have a country with all of these different grape varieties, and we find out that each of them is different from another, each of them has merit, they can reflect different terroirs, and we try to find out what we're about or what they are about. And so that for me is exciting. And then I know that I know when I go home and people are going to say to me, how do I get real Kisi? How is it different? How can I taste? Okay, all of these are really Magranuli, and they're going to be waiting. I know that they're already waiting and asking me, how can I taste real Kisi?
You can't right now.
So I don't want to cast aspersions on Georgia for doing something that is not done elsewhere. Okay, it happens everywhere. And so the fact that Kisi is established as a grape variety and that Magranuli Kisi is now, the Kisi, there's an appellation that wasn't necessarily, where the people who developed the appellation didn't necessarily contact the ampelographers to know what Kisi really should be. The fact that this didn't happen, that's not something that is unique to Georgia.
Yeah.
Is always to question, never to be just satisfied with what you've got. You can be happy with what you've got, but the key element of, I think any of winemaking, certainly my philosophy, is to just ask more questions and figure out what more can you know about a variety, a place, a wine, a culture. You never ever to be complacent, and to explore and see what you can always do better. Because every year is going to be different, right? The parameters are always going to change, but with more information and understanding of what you've done in the past, asking more questions, you're more likely to be even more successful in the future.
I'm thankful to all the people who are gonna ask further questions, because I mean, this is an open topic. It's something new to us as well, and I think your questions might give us even more interesting perspectives on the subject. And please feel comfortable to write any questions you want in the comments. We'll try our best. That's what we actually do with Lisa. She's the person who is digging and asking questions which we Georgians probably have never asked enough. And I'm very thankful for Lisa being here in Georgia, and for her work that she does. It's tremendous. It's something crazy, and I'm short of words to describe her work and dedication and love towards Georgia. So just thank you, and this is the least that I generally can tell you. So
Cheers.
Cheers.